My name is Rosemary McDonnell-Horita. I am a disability rights activist here in Denver. I used to work at an organization called Atlantis Community. They are a center for independent living, so they do advocacy for people with disabilities in the Denver metro area, and I was their youth transition coordinator. But the really great thing about doing disability advocacy is it allows me a space to be able to do community work in a lot of different arenas. Navigating the city as a person with a disability is really challenging. You always have to think 2 or 3 steps ahead. So for me to get from point A to point B, I might take my car or I might take RTD, but then things don't work and lifts are broken on buses, or sometimes, scheduling is off, or I can't get to my car because there's too much snow and I can't remove all of the snow in a way that's accessible to me. Navigating sidewalks are also really challenging, whether it is too narrow or not accessible because of snow, or the dreaded flagstone walkways just make it really impossible. There's lots of different ways that navigating the city as a person with a disability can be extremely challenging. It feels really helpless when you encounter a sidewalk that has a light post smack in the middle. Like on West Colfax, for example, I've seen some folks who use wheelchairs and are trying to get on from one side of the block to the other, and there's a trash can or a light post or a bench. You have to either cross Colfax or go all the way around. A lot of these city plans were not created with us in mind or even with us in conversation. So I think it reiterates how important it is for disabled people to be in the rooms or at the tables, having our input heard of why it's so important to be able to cross the street safely, which seems really silly, but a lot of people can't even have that luxury right now. Thinking about curb cuts are something that people who use wheelchairs utilize, but also skateboards and those free riding scooters that we see downtown. And if you have a shopping cart or suitcases, there's lots of different ways that people use curb cuts every day, but it was originally for wheelchair access. So if we were to go towards a more universal design approach, I think it would eliminate a lot of those conflicting access needs. It would also bring in the larger community. The thing about disability is that anyone can become disabled at any point in their life, and especially with the COVID-19 pandemic, lots of people are having lifelong symptoms and effects of the COVID-19 diagnosis. So thinking about how we can bring our community in instead of keeping them separated and isolated. There are tons of reasons to invest in universal design and disability access, not just because you're personally invested, but because we all benefit from some of the renovations that have happened since the Americans with Disabilities Act. But I think that with a universal design approach, it really is that inclusion of all people who are navigating certain spaces. And I hope that that's the direction that we're going. That's my dream, at least. It is remarkably cheaper to include disability access and universal design in the planning process rather than having to do it later as a renovation. It also makes a lot more sense to have disabled folks and advocates at the table to provide input, because we've lived in a world that was not created with us in mind. And so we're really fabulous innovators. And when you bring us to the table, you'll be surprised what you get.